For posting, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carried. Minutes from the previous meeting were distributed. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as distributed.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Public can call in and comment on today's agenda. Normally limit that to the first 15 minutes, but if we get a call, we'll accept it. Public can call in at 715-538-1894. Samuels Group. You're up, Kurt.
Morning, everyone. Not a lot for updates for you, so I'll keep it brief. The first one is the renovation drawings. We did have our final department meetings a couple of weeks ago to talk about the clerk and treasurer's office as well as UW Extension. Venture is currently working on the floor plans. From the ones that you guys have seen, there's not significant changes. There were some tweaks in regards to where some departments met and what we could do for some potential office adjustments, but no real significant floor plan changes to speak of. So Venture will be finalizing those floor plans. We'll then take the floor plans back to the departments that had some of the changes, and then we'll move into the next phase because we'll be done with schematic design and move into design development. We are still targeting to have those drawings ready by fall so we can bid it out and get hard numbers for you guys when the government or the Justice Center is done. We will break it up into phases so that you can make some decisions on what's included, what's not included, and some alternates that are in there. So that's progressing. I was hoping to have a floor plan for you today, but I talked to Venture and they didn't have it done for today's meeting. So any questions on that?
Yeah, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. So when you present to us what that floor plan looks like, are we still going to have options for, well, there was a request for this, but we don't need that, we could just do this? So A and B options, or is this just going to be, no, this is it, and that's the plan?
So we'll have the floor plan adjusted the way that the requests from the departments had it noted, and we'll cloud them so you have some areas in there. Again, I don't think there were significant changes that are going to add, tons of scope or cost, but we can definitely show you some of those elements. When I say alternates, there's going to be, we'll break it down into certain parts of the building in regards to what does that scope look like. So my goal is that we'll have it by phase of, you can say we want to do phase 1, phase 2 in regards to from a pricing perspective. So there'll be a little bit of areas where you guys can make some decisions, but there wasn't significant changes by the departments.
So when you say phase 1, phase 2, whatever, what you're saying is we're going to do phase 1 and then you can hold off forever on phase 2 and never do it?
Correct.
Or here's phase 1, phase 2, but within those phases, you can choose to do A, B, and C within those to reduce the cost, but you're going to still do the 2 phases?
Correct. So phase 1, what we're planning to break phase 1 is that where that connection, kind of the north annex, that has to be done because we've got to get the corridor through there, right? That's almost like that's got to be completed. The balance of the building could be, we're going to wait, and here is the cost of what that is. That's how we talked about breaking that up into 2 phases. Now, if you want some further alternates in there to say, if we don't do all the renovation and we do some piecemeal elements, we can go over that with you before we put it out to bid. That'll be easy to list it as an alternate. But my goal is to have everything designed so that it is priced out, completely renovated like we talked about, and then you can scale it back if you wanted to per phase. So.
Okay, yeah, I think that answers my question, thank you.
Clear as mud?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yep.
I mean, the whole point is that we wanted to have the departments to have a say-so as to what they need.
Yes.
But at the same time, not be extravagant and allow us to say, no, we're going to have to live with less than that.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody was extravagant. There was a good push to reutilize as much as possible without doing minimal renovation of tearing down walls, all sorts of things. So.
Kurt, are you going to have a schedule too at that same time,
Yep.
exactly how this is going to go, so changing, moving the department here and.
Correct.
Maybe, okay.
That's the next thing.
That'd be good.
It's the next thing I was going to bring up is we are going to have a meeting with the departments that are moving over this week. It's scheduled for this Wednesday. We're going to talk about the move process, things that will be needed by the departments as we move into the new building. How does that make sense in regards to timing, some of the connections, some of the key things that need to take place in October. So that will kind of lead us to that phased approach that you talk about. What are we going to displace first? When can we get into the next area for renovation? So those will all be tied together. So, and we plan to have those department meetings monthly with the departments that are moving over. I know that Tim and Jeremy have been invited to that as well, so that they can be involved in those discussions from a move perspective. So, any questions on that process? Okay.
Well, we've got one.
When do we expect to have the list of how that is planned to be executed? And then when are some of the spaces going to be occupiable? And by that, I mean the data center and the wiring closets.
That's what this meeting on Wednesday is for, to coordinate those efforts and to put together that schedule.
Okay, so it's not set yet?
No.
Okay.
No, that's part of this discussion of what's required from the move and how are we going to go about scheduling that.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, next thing, I know we had some CBs on your list. We do have a CB out that we just got out Wednesday. There are some requested changes to one of the courtrooms to add a couple of additional, it's actually one row of seating on both sides of the aisle. We're sliding a conference room wall back. We don't have pricing back for that. I'm anticipating that we'll have that in the next couple of weeks. There was some questions about a change of a door in one of the bathrooms, and we've come up with a different approach to that that's more cost effective, so we're still finalizing numbers on that. And then there is some added janitor's closets up on the second floor that were missed in the original design that we thought we had the numbers from the plumber, but he is revising them and we don't have the final numbers for you today. So I don't have anything to present for you to approve today, but those three items are under works right now in regards to some potential changes to those elements. So nothing for action on cost today, but just so you know, those things are in progress. Update on that B&B Electric, I did have some dialogue. This is the contractor that had asked for an extension of time or dollars associated with an extension of time. They actually had sent Paul a letter and wanted to meet with the owner, and Paul had shared that with me. So per the contract, we being the construction manager are the individual that they needed to contact, so they wanted to attempt to come back to you. So I did speak to their representative from Pennsylvania and explained to them the position in which we had identified in our correspondence back to them, that is unchanged, and I'd asked him what the reason for meeting with the owner was, and it was just to express their position. And I said, the county already knows the position. I shared with them that I told you, the property committee, as the committee overseeing the project, of our position, and that's unchanged. And I told them that I would bring it to you again today. If you guys feel that it's something that you wanted to meet with him in person, I'm giving you that opportunity, or if you want to stay with the letter of the contract and have me deal with that, that is the, I'm assuming that's the way you want me to head it, but I'll ask you anyways, that just have me deal with the contractor on that.
I vote for that.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm just curious, though, is this contractor at risk of pulling out?
No.
Or something?
No, so the backstory there is that because of the masons and the lack of tradespeople that were there, the schedule from the block and kind of the infrastructure for the block was delayed. There were still other areas where this electrical contractor could have done their work, right? But they're honing in on one area to say, we've delayed this, the duration hasn't changed, so now I have to have all my people packed into a shorter window of time, therefore it's costing me additional dollars, therefore I need to bring on more people, when in reality the specification identified that the schedule were some parameters about the scope of the project, but then some of them may be adjusted. I'm going to tell you right now that contractors on that job site, they're all dealing with tradespeople, manpower issues, right? So they're managing that process. It's part of what's going into our sector, including this contractor, right? So we are still going to meet the end date that was originally projected. So the position of saying that there is an extension of time is not needed, because they will be done. When you walk through there and you see the work that's going to be done, they'll meet the completion date. The cost in regards to their additional cost, they had the opportunity to staff up in certain areas, and we have documentation to show that there were areas where they could have done work and didn't have tradespeople there at the time. So in my mind, it's a moot point. It was an approach to an attempt to get an extension of time or dollars, and we're saying that we don't feel that it's a justified request. So, and my position hasn't changed on that. Our position as a team managing hasn't changed on that, but because they had requested to meet with you in person, I told them that you guys have given that to us to be able to manage that, and that we would stay consistent with it unless you wanted to deviate from that, but I assume that you would not. So.
Good, thank you.
Okay. And then I think the last and probably the biggest issue is, what are we doing for an image on that window?
Well, in my discussions about that, I haven't been able to generate any real interest. I mean, people have ideas, but they kind of trail off into nothingness.
Sure.
So I think I submitted some photos, and I know Tim's got some photos, but from what Tim, maybe you can give a better detail of why those pictures won't work, but if it's not black and white just right, it doesn't really look good. So I don't know if any of us really know what we can do. I mean, we submit pictures, but they don't look good, so what are you gonna do?
My understanding is it's either clear glass or frosted glass. We're not talking about a color on this frost of the glass.
No, it would be frosted, but you could have an image into that frosting.
Right.
The reason for the frosting is that if you walk into that vestibule and you see somebody that's up in that room, you want to have some level of privacy in that space, right? So the opportunity to put image in there is potential, but there will need to be some frosting on that,
Yeah.
on that glass, so.
Yeah, we looked into it and made some inquiries in other places and where they've done these, and really, the beautiful landscape photos we came up with just would be difficult to transpose and make them frosted. But we were hoping that an expert could tell us, what they could do to modify that, give it more depth or clarity or what have you.
So if you want to submit the imagery to us, we can get it to the contractor and find out what can be done.
Okay.
I mean, if you pick one or pick two and say, hey, these are two that we could live with, and we can talk to the individual, because there's two different manufacturers that they're dealing with, and we can find out what that looks like. And then if it doesn't come back that it has the resolution or the clarity that you're looking for, then I think the decision could be, we're not going to get to that point, let's go with just a regular frosted glass. At least we go through that process. But if you guys have one or two that you've all said, hey, this is it, send it to us and we'll get it to the contractor.
I mean, the only other option would be, Tim, if we had an outline shape of the county, with Trempealeau County in it, make it simple,
Did you guys look at Dave Carlson's pictures at all? I mean,
Yeah.
Did you?
Okay.
Because he had a bunch taken by a professional, but like you say, if it doesn't transpose on that glass very well.
Paul, do you have a copy of the county seal?
Yep, I do.
We could-
Send it to you? Then you
If,
can send it.
yeah,
That might work.
and then we can do an outline of Trempealeau County. Do you want township lines on it, or just,
Can I ask one question? If we don't put anything and just frost it, is there cost saving?
No,
Oh, it's all.
they have an imagery that's there anyway, and they're going to print it, so it's not,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if you get me an image of what the landscape would be, and then if you have a county element, you tell me 1, 2, and 3, I'm assuming that the county CO will be able to get that accomplished, and then we'll still have to have frosting around it. So there'll probably be the seal with frosting around it, because you don't want it to be just a seal and the rest of it clear. But we'll get some kind of a proof of that so that you guys can see what it's going to look like. So, good, we got that done. That's all I have for you, unless you guys have questions for me. And I get, from a county board perspective, again, I don't have much for an update. If you want me there or not, I can make it happen, or we can wait till next month.
Yeah, I'll go on your word that you don't have much new to present,
Okay.
so we can save you a trip.
Kurt, is there an exact date in October?
We are shooting for the end of October is what we've told the contractors for substantial completion. We haven't picked a date. I mean, October 31st is the end of October, right? So.
Well, I know you've always been saying that.
We
but I
have
don't know if
contractors right now that are going to be, there's going to be areas of that building that are going to be done well in advance of that, right? But we still have to get substantial completion to get state review and approval for some of those elements, so we're targeting that end of October.
But by contract, there is no date?
No, we had always targeted that September, October date in regards to what the contracts were for them. So yeah, that's the date that, like I say, so there's some contractors that are going to be done and gone by then, but this is going to be wrapping up a lot of the mechanical, electrical elements at that time. So if you walk through there now, you'll see there's paint and ceilings that are dropped, and you're going to walk into an area and say, well, this is going to be done in advance. Well, yeah, there's going to be portions of it that will be done in advance of that. It's just a matter of wrapping everything else up. So.
I just think from the county's perspective, we need to be thinking about timing with regard to opening the building and,
Yep.
grand opening type stuff, what are we planning for?
What I would recommend is let's get through a couple of these monthly meetings that we'll have with the departments and talk about the moves. I typically have seen that you get the building in and operational before you have this grand opening to the community, so to speak, and work some of the bugs out. But let's get through our May and June meetings with the departments. We'll have a better handle on what that date looks like, and then we've got some time to plan for that grand opening time. Yeah. I've seen that done multiple ways. You have a ribbon cutting, you have different ceremonies that are done, and it's handled different ways. I mean, I've been part of them where they come in and they have the presentation outside and bring it into the building. So you can make it however you want to make it in regards to what does that opening look like. And it would be this committee, or if you take it to the full board, on how you want to make that happen. So.
It just stands to reason that we would have plenty of notice to the public of, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Where's the front door going to be, and on this date, you should expect to go, all that kind of stuff, regardless of whether we have a grand opening party or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
We need to let the public know, here's where we're at, and here's when to anticipate the change happening. So that's where my mind's going.
Yep. That's a good point. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Kurt.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Tim Robertson, you're up. He looks enthused, doesn't he?
Not a lot today. We've been very busy. We haven't done recycling since before COVID. So we've got almost 4 years worth of stuff in the basements and nooks and crannies and whatnot. So we've already filled one garage bay up in the sheriff's office. They're coming on Friday, and we've got 3 more stacks of PCs down in the basement that have to get moved, but we need permission from the sheriff to take over a second garage bay, and we want to wait until Thursday for that. So not sure how that's going to go, so wish us luck. We met with the people who provided our network solution, and we've come up with a plan. We're now thinking that we have to implement the replacement switches sooner rather than later. Waiting until the go live in October isn't going to work for this building. We want to get our feet underneath us, so we are going to be swapping out the network equipment gradually in this building. We need to bring the data center online earlier than thought as well. So we need to make the connections as redundant as we possibly can. And then we did verify, since last we met, that that is also going to work fine, where just because we have it set up in the existing data center, the way we have it, it should be a simple process once we move to our location, new location, to remake that without too much difficulty. We're fully expecting probably at least one weeknight this summer where we're going to end up having to shut everything down and switch some stuff over. It could get a little tricky. And then in the fall, we're probably going to have one or two of those, possibly a weekend, where we're going to have to do some stuff. We're still working with dispatch. Jail seems to have a fairly good plan as far as getting their facility ready and what they're going to need, and they have a lot of vendors that are building stuff specifically for them, whereas dispatch, there's a lot of reuse of existing equipment, and we are still at a loss as to how we're going to move them without substantial downtime. So a lot of problems there, and we'll keep you in the loop as we uncover more of them. But yeah, the existing Vesta panel system, that's how they make and receive all their phone calls through the various components. Picking that up and moving that chicken across the road is gonna be difficult. We'd prefer to have something in place. That's about it.
Any questions for Mr. Robertson?
On the phone system, are we done with that now? Is it all rolled out, complete? Any follow-up issues that we?
We still have the problem in dispatch. We have met with vendors. Zoom has provided an engineer, and we're going to be setting up what's called an ATA device this week. And we're going to pick a pod and do some testing with it and make sure that it works. And then once we verified that it works, the idea would be that we would port over the existing published number to the outside world for non-emergency. And that date is when we would cut the remaining lines over from the old system onto Zoom. The problem is that we pay $17,500 a year to Lumen for support on the Vesta system, which is provided by Motorola. So they don't know what they're doing. And the technician is
it they being Motorola?
Lumen,
Oh.
the support people. Yeah, he's threatening to send a team out here and charge us for it. I'm like, for what? You haven't done a thing on this contract. You get paid $17,000 a year to do nothing. So you're showing up. But we'll work that out, because I think we need somebody who knows what they're talking about, and this guy does not. We think it should be as simple as taking the analog plug that currently comes in from the PBX in our building and switching it over to the plug that we're going to plug into this device that we bought, and then that'll connect to Zoom. But we really don't know, because the technician for Lumen is not able to answer that question, which is very disheartening.
Is that Lumen contract held by the Sheriff's Department?
I pay for that. That was a contract signed, I want to say 2015, and it was a 5-year deal, and I didn't know about it. So then we were without it for like a year, and then had to pay when they figured it out. Basically supports the hardware for the Vesta panel system. We've been looking into Next Gen 911 grants, which would provide a replacement system that would work fine with Zoom and everything else. But with the building project, the sheriff was reticent to come back and ask for another couple $100,000. So that's not happening until they move to the new facility.
Tim, in the new facility, is that dispatch equipment, is that all new? Or are they going to utilize what we have and move it over?
Some new. The desk setups are going to be new. They're getting furniture that's new. But the radio equipment, the Vesta panels, most of the components are gonna be their existing stuff. I don't know of any, I think we're getting a new time piece for keeping time on the system. Yeah, not much else.
There is some things coming through the state budgeting process that it would be good to hold until we're in the new building, and there may be more funds available for specifically that kind of thing, so I think it's good just to hold on everything.
The grants so far have been required like 20% matching, and for a $450,000 project, that you can do the math, and there's just not funds available for us to match that, so. Which is unfortunate, because had we had something in place, this transition would be a lot easier, but as it is. We are still not sure how the trunking is going to work. We don't have any information on that. So there'll be new trunks coming in from Lumen into the new space for the 911. And I'm still not getting answers on that. That's Brightspeed, excuse me, wrong company.
Keep us posted.
Yeah.
Anything else for Tim? Thanks, Tim. Jeremy?
Good morning. So a couple things just to start off that are things that we completed or getting completed this week. The vehicle that I purchased for my department started a year and a half ago, will be delivered on Wednesday of this week. So that'll be nice. We got that one squared away. I worked with Paul to make sure that the funds are there so I can get that transferred over and get that paid. So we are square there. Last meeting, at the time of the meeting, I mentioned that we were having some issues with the chiller. At that point, we usually always do at the beginning of the year, where it will run for a certain amount of time or won't run, and to the dismay of most people in the building, because it starts to get hot rather quickly. During the past month, what we've done with that is normally, so there's some screens in the system. In order to clean those screens, I have to drain down about 200 gallons of water, get into the screens and clean them out. So we added a couple new bypass valves, and a couple new screens, and now I only got to drain about 5 gallons of water to get in there and get it. So now the shutdown time is only about 15 minutes when and if I need to do that. Over the past month, I've pulled out about 5 gallons worth of just scrap steel, rust, cast iron, stuff that's scale that's broken off on the inside of the pipes. That's what plugs up the unit. I'm not getting anything out now. It hasn't plugged in 2 weeks, and it's still been running just fine. So, but this will be nice going forward in the future. And also, we added some new bleeder valves, because every time I have to shut it down, we get some air in the system, which then the system gets airlocked and then it doesn't run. And so we added some new bleeder valves and a new pressure regulator to keep the internal pressure of that at 20 pounds. And again, now, since all that's been done the past 2 weeks, no issues that have come up quite yet. Other things with this building, we've been starting to paint a few of the meeting rooms and the bathrooms, and we're painting them the color of what has been selected for the new building, so that when everything is said and done, we'll be back down to 1 gallon of paint to come and touch up colors. So you'll notice a few, it's kind of an off-white, grayish, tannish looking color. It's all the bathrooms are done. We did the Trempealeau room last week. We'll be floating through the rest of the building here going forward for the rest of this year. Also, in the past month, we moved the maternity room, which was in the basement on the south side, to the second floor into what was the public defender's room. And then I moved from my tool room, chemical storage room, into where the maternity room was. The reason I did that is as the county started doing, we'd have to do reviews of our staff. And if I'm sitting there trying to do a review, a performance review with one of my staff, and the rest of my staff needs to come in and get tools, or it just wasn't feasible to do that. So I worked with the health department, and it was a small public defender's room, but we added a sink, painted it up, put new circuits in there, changed the lighting, added a deadbolt to the door. Everything seems to work out just fine, and the health department likes it because it's actually 10 steps from the health department door now, as opposed to the far end of the building. Health Department, we are worked with them to help facilitate with the Samuels Group for where the connection's going to be between the two buildings. The Health Department actually has a vaccine refrigerator in that area. We've coordinated with them. We're going to be moving their freezer this week and the refrigerator the following week, so that room will be empty so that Samuels Group can pick a date that they can start making the penetration between the two buildings. Which is key for us, because another issue that I've talked to them about on a weekly basis, Tim is aware, we need that connection point, because I need to figure out how we're going to hook the PA system from that building to this building, the fire alarm system, the panic alarm buttons, all of that stuff needs to be fed from this building to that building and or tied into those new systems. So that dispatch doesn't have two microphones in there, one microphone for building A, one microphone for building B. So, what's that?
Don't forget cameras.
Cameras too, all that stuff needs to make, so we need to get that penetration open so that we can get conduit run, so that we can figure out what needs to get done, and then more specifically, where is it gonna get paid from and how much it's gonna cost. Because a lot of this is either going to be in the remodel or the remodel of this building, or because it's not built into the fees for the new building. So we need to get that squared away. So that's going to be something that we're working on going
That
forward.
should have been in the bid, because they knew they would have to make that connection in the process of building the building. So that should have been right in the bid.
Just like when he comes back here every week and lets you know that I didn't have janitor closets on the second floor. That's how that would have, should have, that wasn't caught, and it just, now it's a change order that comes in. So this stuff here was known, but was always kind of like, we'll get to that when we get to that. Well, we're getting to that now, and that stuff needs to get taken care of. And so it's a lot of Tim's stuff too. It's, all this stuff this building needs to plug into that building. Card readers, everything. Let me see here. So the other issue that we've had in the past that Tim's brought up is we've had some electrical issues before, where we randomly lose power to a particular outlet, which would affect one of his servers. Hasn't happened, the whole rack. Yeah, it hasn't happened in quite a while, but so the new person that I hired a few weeks ago used to be, he's an electrician, so I've tasked him with trying to figure out what that issue was, and as of this morning, he found a loose connection in a neutral wire, which was causing a 120 volt outlet to tie into another outlet, and so all of a sudden, randomly, that would go from 120 volts to 208 volts for no apparent reason. Well, the reason being that there was a loose connection in a box that he found that he took care of this morning. He worked with a member from IT. We shut off some breakers just to make sure that it wouldn't kill any of their, specialized equipment this morning, and took care of that. So hopefully, going forward, we don't have that issue randomly shutting down his racks anymore. Questions I have for this department, or for this committee here. I'm trying to get together my budget, capital expense requests, all that stuff already for next year. We're going to have new flagpoles at what will be the new entrance over here, so I'll end up removing the flagpoles that are on the main entrance side of the building now, but there's also a giant concrete Trempealeau County Courthouse sign that's in the lawn. Are we going to want that removed so that it doesn't look like that's the front of the building anymore, because that will not be the front of the building? I need to know if you guys would want me to get a price on removing that, or are we just going to leave that? Because since the entrance for the building is going to be off of Hobson Street now, not off of Main Street, that also bodes into what's the address of the new building going to be. That's one that I can't pick. Going by land management, our land records, and from the city, the address should technically be off of Hobson, because that's where the entrance is going to be. But then that poses a problem for every other department that has, the court system has hundreds of envelopes that are either already printed with P.O. Box 67 or 36245 Main Street. So that's going to be up to this committee to figure out what address I need to do, because then when the address is done, then I want to get this building on the postal route so that I don't need to go to the post office twice a day just to pick up and drop off mail when the post office can do that for us. Now, I can work with land records to figure out land records to figure out what our address should be, going by where the last house on Hobson Street is to what our address should be, but I'm going to need this committee to try to figure out what they want the address to be going forward. I'm also, FYI, going to probably hit up exec finance. Well, I'm going to have to for one of these. I need to go there to request funds for what would have been a capital expense project for this new building, because I need to purchase garbage cans, shelving, clocks, and rugs for this new building, because that's not part of that, what is it, the FF&E? It's not part of furniture. It's all stuff that I have to buy for that building that I don't have money to purchase that stuff for. So I'll be going to exec finance to ask for money for that. And then I also need a question from this committee. So the entrance for the building, if you choose to only do the front door as the only entrance to this building, I need to buy alarms for every other door on the building now, for what is now the front door, for what is the door going out to Quick Trip, for the sheriff's hallway. And I'll need to purchase those before the end of the year so that I can have them installed. So that'll be another request that I have to go to exec finance if you choose to do one entrance, because we need to know if somebody is trying to utilize one of the other perimeter doors going forward. So I'll need to put alarms on those. And then I'll also be going to exec finance to get some of the front sidewalk. When you leave today, when you walk on the front sidewalk and you go south towards the dumpster, you'll notice that there is some huge giant cracks and tripping hazards in the front sidewalk. I need to get a few of those slabs replaced. A lot of those were caused either by the winter heaving and from when we had a temporary ramp off of Main Street so people could pull into that gravel lot while Hobson Street was getting redone last year. Sidewalk was not made for, cars to drive on like that, so it did cause some of those to crack. So I'll be going to them to try to request funds to get that replaced, because again, that's $6,200 and that's outside of the realm of what I have for just normal vendor expenses.
They're just sidewalk squares?
There's I think 3 or 4 sidewalk squares, and then there's one piece that needs to get mud jacked.
Do you guys do that then?
To repair I'd end up either getting prices from, and in the past, it's been Jarowski or a handful of other people that have redone the sidewalks for us.
You guys don't do your own concrete, that little bit of concrete at all?
No, we don't do the concrete, because I don't have the equipment to remove any of that stuff either. I mean, I could go I only rent the Bobcat to do snow. I don't store that on site. So again, I could rent it, but we don't have it. But the price will be done before I go to exec finance to do either way. And then the last one is actually for that gravel lot. I spoke to the city again and then land management, and now any and all requirements that they told me in the past that I needed for permits for rainwater runoff and everything else, now they say I don't need any of that. So I'd like to get that paved as soon as possible. Now, the first price and the only price that I have is not the one I'm going with, but it's the one that I'd request the funds from, is from the highway department at a cost of $17,000 to remove it. To remove the gravel, put new base coat, and then I think it was 2.5 or 3.5 inches of blacktop on top of that. But it would be a lot more safe going for in the winter months, that I can actually plow it, that there's not as much ice sitting there. And it'll be a lot more convenient than the dirt. It's going to get done one way or the other, but I'm going to request it gets done this year as opposed to next year before winter goes in. So that'll be another thing I go to exec finance for, to start the process there. So to rehash the stuff that I need from this committee, answers for is the removal of the concrete sign in the front of the building, whether you want me to leave that or get a price to remove that. And then the address that you want for this building going forward. And again, we do have a P.O. box which I can continue to pay for indefinitely going forward, because that does come out of my department's budget as well. But the physical address, what would show up on Google when someone types in Trempealeau County Courthouse or Government Center, what address is going to pop up. So just for discussion for you guys, so I can get an answer on that later.
So Jeremy, what you're saying is, there's two different things. There's the post office address, and there's what would be get published on Google, right?
Well, it's so, the post office, or whatever, like right now, you go in, the mailing address that we have for most things is actually gonna be, I think, that P.O. Box 67. That's the main return stuff that we get. Our physical address right now is 36245 Main Street. But our main entrance is not going to be on Main Street anymore, so it's gonna be off of Hobson Street. So do we need to change that, which is gonna be listed in land records in the city and at the post office, for this physical address to be 12345 Hobson Street, or whatever those numbers may be? Because that's, like I said, that's where the entrance is facing, and that's the road you have to pull off of to get here. That's what it should be. The city said they'll go with whatever we choose. If we choose to do the three, keep the one that we have existing, but again, it'll bring, if people search it up, it's gonna bring people to the front of what's existing. People would figure out where to go, but it's not going to be accurate.
Yes, I mean, there isn't necessarily a requirement to change it. We could keep the P.O. box and.
The P.O. box can be kept. I mean, and that will
Just
be
like it is.
beneficial for the treasurer's office, for the circuit court and stuff like that, because it has that particular stuff. But again, that would be, in my mind, not forever for the P.O. box, preferably, just because then I could get the building on, the post office would come here once a day in the morning at 10 o'clock in the morning to pick up and drop off mail. As opposed to right now, my department goes to the post office at 9 o'clock every day to pick up the mail, then we go back at 1:30 every day to drop off the mail. It's not a huge drive, but it's still just,
Yeah.
I think we're about the only one left in town that actually brings it.
Well, you got a truck coming now, so it's no
Agreed,
problem.
agreed. But like I said, the school's gotten themselves on the postal route,
Yeah.
the healthcare center, stuff like that, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the natural progression of things, it makes reasonable sense to move in that direction. I think my point is, we can change Google, so that'll be our main address over there when we open, regardless of what we do with the post office.
It just needs to get probably changed in land records too, though, so that it's accurate in the computer system for the county as a whole. So whether you change it or leave it, that's up to you guys to decide. You let me know what you want to do, and then I'll make it happen going forward. It's just outside of the realm of.
Yeah, I just don't know what difference it makes if land records has it on one or the other. Or I don't think there's any, huh?
It's for 911. Actually, it's a 911 address, so
Well, that might make a difference.
fire department still knows where we are.
Yeah, and 911 should know where we are too, because they're in the same location. But again, that bodes to, the fire alarm, and I don't want one registered to one address, one registered to a different address. It's just something else for you guys to think about up front now, and then maybe I get it put on the agenda for next month so you guys can discuss it and then make your decision at that point.
I don't know about you guys, but I think on the concrete sign, I think we hold in place until further things transpire.
Yeah, that's a cost that we
Yeah.
can move back if we need to incur it at all.
Yeah, that doesn't have to be done now, but I want to take a look at it too, see how it all.
Yeah,
I can't visualize it right now.
it's not that I don't believe you, it's just that in my memory, what sign?
Yeah, it's right in front of the flagpoles. And once you go out there and you look, you can't miss it. It's just a big, giant rectangular concrete block in the front of the lawn, so.
It's where my 911, where our youth and government picture is taken.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we'll have all that stuff on the new entrance of the building. New flagpoles and new signage, so.
So we're getting new, or you're having to move the flagpole? You said earlier you were gonna move the flagpoles.
No, I'm going to remove the existing flagpoles because there's no need to fly flags on the rear of the building.
So why even remove them?
Well, I just don't want 3 giant posts just sticking up in the middle of the lawn. I'm gonna remove them. I'll cut them down, but.
Well, as long as it doesn't cost us anything, why do it?
The poles are one thing. I'm more concerned with the concrete signage. The poles are gonna get cut down and removed because there'll be new poles installed with this with this project at the new front of the building. The poles aren't what I'm having an issue with. It's the signage that's back there.
I'm just saying, Jessica, why waste your time cutting down the poles if we're just not gonna use this? Let them be there.
neither here nor there. That's not costing anything. It's,
Right.
that'll just be one of the jobs that they get done on a normal day, so.
I've got a question on the door alarms.
Yep.
Are current doors alarmed?
No.
Um,
Like right now, I mean, if they go out the quick trip, there's no, and even like the fire door that's here on the first floor that comes at the bottom of the stairwell, there's an alarm there, but they've all been gutted. It's just the shell that's on the door. So at some point, one of my predecessors or somebody else just removed the alarms for whatever reason. So I just need to put, what basically would just be an open or close sensor alarm. If someone opens the door, it's just a localized alarm on the door that does an audible alarm. That's the cheapest route that I could go right now going forward. But that's primarily if you choose to do the one entrance, if you're not wanting anyone else to use any of those doors as an exit, which I think steps into the people that are coming up after me here. But
Are there going to be cameras at the new doors, entrances?
at
I
the,
think?
in the new building?
Yeah.
As far as I understand it, there should be, but there should be. I haven't seen the placement of any of the new cameras because that one's not so much inside the realm of my department.
Okay.
But any doors that exit the building should have cameras on them at some point. You know, whether it's a fire door that comes off the front, there's probably a general one in the parking lot that gets the whole thing, but maybe not centralized on that door. But here, like, there's cameras. If you go out the sheriff's department, there's one in the parking lot. There's ones as you go out the quick trip door, stuff like that, but at the main entrance now.
Now, those existing cameras are monitored in dispatch, correct?
And at the front door. So Mark, the deputy at the front door, has the ability to view those cameras, and dispatch has the
I
ability
guess
to view
I was
those.
taking the long way around, but my question is, do we need them alarmed and camered?
As far as I know now, I can walk into dispatch and they don't have every door pulled up every time. So we probably have to add more monitors for them to pull up every camera that we have at one particular time. Or they're gonna be like little postage.
Yeah, that you can't see.
You're not gonna be able to see which one is, they can click on each one to make it bigger if they wanna see everyone, but they're not having the ability to watch every camera on a large scale all the time. But if we need to go back and pull film, stuff like that, we can do that, so.
Do you have a cost estimate on alarming the doors?
Not yet. So that's, again, that'll be something that I bring to, they're roughly going to be, from the last time that I purchased these was a handful of years ago, but they're anywhere between $250 and $350 a piece installed by my department, so.
Okay.
And I'd be looking at probably about 10, 11 of these to put them up, but again, it's outside of the realm of what I'm going to purchase in just a normal, what I normally budget for supplies or stuff like that, so.
Anything else, Jeremy?
Not at this time.
Okay. Any questions for Jeremy? Thanks. Andrea?
Hey.
I don't know if everybody knows your compatriot here.
Oh, my friend.
Yep, so my name is Jacob Kluza. I'm the horticulture agent for Jackson and Trempealeau counties.
Yeah, heard a lot about you.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, all positive.
Yeah, so naturally, it was actually Jacob who watched your guys' last meeting, because we've been keeping up mainly because we're like, I don't want to say nosy, but we want to know what's going on with the building for when the new building is happening. But one of the conversations you guys have been having about like entrance and security, but along with meeting rooms, really affects us. So we figured we'd come and talk about it because we're a little more non-traditional and we don't just have normal office hours like everybody else does. I actually have a really great example from this weekend that I can share with you guys to kind of illustrate why I want to say I'm frustrated. I'll just do the meeting rooms, for example. So on Saturday, I did a program for 14 youth in the Trempealeau County area for YQCA, which is Youth for the Quality Care of Animals. I haven't been able to use any of the county meeting rooms because you guys have security, which is that is your guys' choice to make. But also, I need meeting spaces, and if I would challenge you guys to go and see if there are any public meeting spaces in this area, because there aren't. So I called the school I said, hey, am I able to use this? They're like, yeah, sure. We've got you on the schedule. You'll be able to come in. 9 o'clock rolls around. I'm standing outside the Whitehall School with all of my participants because the school was not open yet. And I don't have a key. And who do you call after hours to open the school? Nobody. So I called a couple people who I know. One of my neighbors is on the school board, but then also I called another colleague who I'm like, hey, do you know somebody who's at the school who might be able to let me in? Because or else I looked like I was giving a sermon in front of the school, which was a little awkward, but I'm flexible. This is what I do. So I eventually got in, but it was minorly frustrating because I wasn't able to, I didn't have a space. If it would have been raining, that would have been one thing, but I needed a space to teach. This was one program that people were like, Andrea, you need to do it. And I was giving that option, or I was making that available. But I knew I wasn't able to bring them here if I wanted to because of our after-hour meeting policy and needing security. So I just want to bring these points to your guys' attention so that you're aware that this, I mean, it might not seem like some of these things affect people in the courthouse, but for our office, it does. 80% of my meetings are after hours or on weekends. So I've only, a couple weeks ago, I used a meeting room during the day, but most of them I've been having to find spaces that have Wi-Fi and are ADA compliant, which I have a meeting every month that I have to have at the library in Arcadia because there is nowhere else to have it. So I don't know. I just figured you guys needed to hear a little bit about that.
Just as an aside, in the future,
Yeah.
you can notify the Whitehall Police Department. Their office is in the school.
Ah.
They have keys.
See, the funny thing is the mailman came and he let us in.
Oh, good for him.
He's like, are you supposed to be here? And I'm like, I actually am.
So are these
good.
programs from the extension? Sponsored by the extension?
Yep.
Funded by the extension and all that, okay.
Yeah. And Jacob will probably talk a little bit more about the security portion of it, but we also have a lot of, like, you should have seen me walking in today. We always have carts full of things, and I will say, some of the things that we bring in, this is just on the everyone getting screened portion, which we don't mind. That is, I mean, public security is a thing, but just keep in mind some of the stuff that we have to bring in can be questionable. I can say for a fact right now, over in my storage unit or our storage area, I have archery equipment and air rifles. If I need to bring those in and out of the building, how is that going to happen? Because, I mean, those are considered dangerous equipment. They're in the courthouse right now, so, like, yes, we can start screening, but I already have them in here. I don't use them, but when we do have a shooting sports instructor, eventually they will be coming and going. So these are just extra thoughts that you guys can probably add to your docket of thoughts.
Yep, and so for me, I know you guys have been discussing security and having the 2 entrances or 1 entrance and whether trusting them with the key card access. And so for me, my opinion is I would advocate for a 2-door system, a service entrance, because like Andrea said, we bring in a lot of things and we bring out a lot of things, and they are not conducive to going through screening. I have soil probes that are 6 feet tall, metal, that I don't think would be going through the metal detector or the x-ray machine. I've come in with hundreds of pounds of compost for the community garden that needed to be stored in the basement. And so I just think, there are a few, you can provide extra security, you can provide better organization, you can enhance your privacy. And so I don't know where the rest of the, contractors enter the building from, but for me, I would advocate a separate service entrance, so I'm not blocking the flow of traffic at 8 in the morning or at any time, that I'm not bothering Mark or any of the security guards having to constantly me go in 5-6 times for multiple loads. And just for their safety, so they're not having to waste their time and effort on me or anybody else when, I am not a security threat. And I know the biggest thing you guys had talked about was preventing the heat of the moment situations, right? And so I believe that, the heat of the moment situations are it's community-based, right? So if anything happens and somebody needs to be walked out, it's an HR thing that their security card should be canceled before they're even walked out, right? You know, in Jackson County, an email goes out letting us know anything, any possible security issues right away, like be on the lookout for this person. So that's a, you know, community of life practice that makes sure, you know, retaliatorial things don't happen. But but providing the trust that, you know, we're valued employees, we went through background checks, and that we're trusted to enter the building when we need to. And I'm for security. I don't need access to the courthouse. So, you know, like you can very much limit people's access with the cards and what doors they can enter. I'm just you know, asking for, you know, to realize that a lot of our meetings are after hours. I have to come in at 10, 11 o'clock because my meeting was from 6 to 8 at a library. And, you know, I live in Jackson, so I don't want to have to drive all the way to Jackson back and forth to drop off stuff during regular business hours, especially when I'm a part-time employee. So just having access to the building, you know, during non-traditional times, and then just being able to get my stuff in without inconveniencing anybody else, without causing more troubles, and then without, you know, causing safety hazards. So.
Thank you for that,
Yeah.
both of you. And the longer I'm involved in this, the more I'm coming to realize that security issues are not black and white, and you probably can't afford the kind of security we're aiming for. You know, theoretically, security, total security is a great idea until you have to pay for it, and then there seems to be some reluctance to pay for everything that we might need. We understand the need for after-hours meeting spaces. And lately, it's not just a matter of being able to pay for it, it's a matter of finding the bodies to pay to do the job. So it's an issue that we're aware of, and I think I can say with a lot of confidence that in this room with this committee, currently, there are 3 different opinions on how to approach this. And if all 5 committee members were here, there would be 5 different opinions on how to approach this. So, I thank you for taking time out of your day to come here and let us know what you're thinking. And now we're aware of it, and we'll add that to the mix in trying to make a decision that upsets the fewest number of people.
Yeah, because we just know that we're a little bit different when it comes to everyone who walks in and out of the building. So I figured, especially with the meeting spaces, that has been affecting me for over a year now. And I'm frustrated, but it's purely because of the lack of public spaces in the county that I'm able to host a meeting. I've been making it work.
I was going to tell you, you probably don't know this, but Independent State Bank has a quite large meeting area that you might want to talk to them in terms of, can they donate that space instead of charging you for it? Because it is a very nice space that you could hold meetings in, just so you know.
See,
Where's what door would you guys the second entrance? Which one would which one would you guys prefer to us to look at for an entrance, for a second entrance?
For a second entrance?
So extension is technically going where the sheriff is going. So we would have access to that bay.
We had asked about possibly having that door still be available to us so that we could just pull our cars up there, load and unload, and then leave. But that was, we'd have to talk to Jeremy too. We're not,
You're talking the hallway, though, not the garage bays.
well, the garage bays.
Garage
but
bays are spoken for.
I was gonna, no, we don't want your garage
You're talking more
bays.
the hallway to
Yeah.
get to the parking lot.
Yeah, because we just wanted a space to not jam up everything else, because while you guys are here during the summer, like walk by our office sometimes, coming up to science camp, it's stacked. Like, we have a lot of stuff going in and out because we have some big programs that require a lot of things. So we're a little bit different, and we needed to make sure that people heard what we're doing here so that we can at least have some consideration. But I really appreciate you guys listening to us, and if you have more questions, feel free to ask us, because we like talking about what we do.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, no, it was good information, thank you.
Yeah, of course, it'll make everything more muddy, but you guys will come up with a good plan, I think.
Thanks again. You
Thank
too.
you, guys.
Can I make a comment on
Yes,
where they're wanting to go?
have at her.
We've actually had county board at the Independence Bank once.
Yeah.
So just an FYI, if they end up going to where the sheriff's department is now, if you so choose to want to do a second entrance for that particular department, I can isolate that department. So they could go in and out of that sheriff's, what's currently the sheriff's parking lot, up the hallway into the sheriff's department. But then we can make it so they could not access the rest of the courthouse either. Because that one's kind of standalone. If you go in the sheriff's department now, there's a double door system to get in there. I could remove one of those doors. And then at the west side of the hallway, I could remove that door. So then essentially UW Extension would be its own little entity in the courthouse. The only way to get in and out would be their particular door. Just food for thought if you are looking at that for that particular, for what's currently the sheriff's department, I could isolate that if need be. So just an FYI.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
The further away I get from my career in law enforcement, the less ramrod straight I am on security. We are still a community in this building. When Andrea is talking about longbows and air rifles coming through security, my guess is the people working security will know that she legitimately has longbows and air rifles. So passing them through security will be doable. We can't just hold fast to the policy and turn people away. We need to use our brains when we're dealing with this. Hopefully. I have experienced it both ways, but I think, and I see the judge and Ashley are here, and Security and Facilities meeting approaches security of the facility in one way that I have yet to see actually occur in reality. I think that's fair, Judge? It's a target that we need to aim for, but because we're dealing with humans, anybody want to get in on the pool as to how long it'll take till employees start propping doors open with rocks? It won't take long. And I'm happy to hear them come here and talk to us about their needs, because in the past, employees have just disregarded the county's policy on security as far as entrances and exits. So we need to approach this in such a way that we're aware of how humans behave and keep ourselves aware of that and what might occur to make it easier for the people that work here, especially if it does not comply with our security policy. Which leads us into the next item on the agenda. I think it's important that we provide meeting space. And my assumption is, with the new facility, we will have space that we can use for meetings. Do we want to pay for security for meetings after hours? Do we want to charge for meetings that are not county-related? The questions go on and on. comments, gentlemen?
It wouldn't be so hard of a decision to answer your question if the security question wasn't out there. I think we would all agree that the facility is the county's facility, it's for the people, people are paying for it. To the extent that we can make it available to them, I think we should.
And I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, and even people that are willing to pay for it for non-county functions after hours, would be great if we could do that. There is question in my mind on the security side. How do you provide the appropriate level of security during the normal business hours for court purposes, which is obvious, and still be able to provide that access after hours? I mean, I know everybody is concerned about security, and we should be, but as an example, I went down to Madison 2 weeks ago for a government day. There were 700 people at that event, and there's no security in the court, you could walk right into the Capitol, right? Stand right under the rotunda. There's zero security. So there's probably security that goes into the chambers for, legislature and that sort of thing. So how do we, or can we, segregate the building so that the appropriate level of security is given where we really should have it, and others is not so high level?
And when you say security, you're talking about a checkpoint that somebody's got to go through.
Yeah.
With a
I mean, there was,
magnetometer and a
like I said, there's
X-ray
700
machine.
people that walked in
Yeah.
multiple entrances to the Capitol, right? I mean, they have access to the public building.
Yeah.
Here, we're saying, in some ways, well, today, like it is today, you don't get in here, period, unless you have a badge or you walk through security. So we have it locked down harder here than we do at the state capitol, for crying out loud, so.
And I think our biggest scare for security is the judges and the courthouse and the
Right.
jail part of the, I think all the other entities that are in the building are not as much to be afraid of being more open, but the judge, there you might have, and the courthouse is where you might run into any kind of trouble, I think, if you did have some trouble. And that's the one that has to be most secure.
I think that we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I'd love to get your comments on, how you could see this working the best way.
Sure. It's always a complicated issue. There's varying levels of need. Certainly, you guys are talking about the courtroom. We do work there that makes people upset. And the idea about security and having weapons screening in the courtroom is really about limiting their ability to access a firearm while they're still angry, while they're still, while they're still in that sort of heightened angry state where poor decisions are made, where that part of your brain shuts off that helps you make good decisions. And so that's the idea of not, you just went to a hearing and you lost rights to your kids or some other awful thing, that outcome from your perspective, and you're angry at everybody, you're angry at the world, and you run out to the car to go get your gun and come back in and do something that you wouldn't probably do if your mind was not angry. And so that one's obvious. And then on a different level, I hear, and I was in here listening as well to the UW Extension folks. The building's also tiered with employees, and at times you hear about employees who are disgruntled or let go, or for whatever reason have things going on in their life that you don't know about and that they're not going to show you, and you look at just the outward exterior and everything looks fine. And I think if you know what's going on in the last year in this courthouse, there's an example of that, and you don't always know what's going on underneath, and so there is a risk there. You look at the news, you look at things that have happened in other places, there's a risk there. And what you heard from UW Extension was the convenience that's lost. You're always going to trade convenience for the hope that there's less risk. and it's something you can never really have good numbers on and say, if we do this, this is going to happen. The security experts are going to tell you that you should have a single entrance, that everybody should be screened, whether they're employee or not. That's the most safest. Obviously, that's also the most inconvenient for a lot of people. I listened to the gentleman speak today, and I wrote down some notes. He said, "I am not a security threat." And how do you know that?
My thought was, not right at this moment, you're not.
Right, and I'm not saying that he is, but you don't know that. And like I said, you don't always know what's happening, what's going on, or maybe there's a bad day, maybe there's something going on at home. Maybe there's a divorce, his wife just served him with papers and took the kids and left. Those are the kind of things that happen in everyday life, unfortunately, that when somebody shows up to do their normal work, they got stuff going on, and so are they a security threat? Maybe not. We don't know. And so again, it's about limiting that access to weapons until hopefully they're at a time where they're not upset and able to think more clearly. And so I don't have the answer for you. I think you guys have figured out the issues. Obviously, the court is higher level for security because of the nature of the work we do. Employees are probably less risk, but there's still a risk. And what do you do with that? Nobody likes to go through security. Like I said, last time I was here on security, I worked, when I was in law school, worked at the Hennepin County Government Center, downtown Minneapolis. And employees and even the judges, everybody had to go through, they had a separate entrance for the employees and the public, but everybody went through weapon screening, and that was 20 years ago. And so that's obviously a different area, though. That's Minneapolis.
Hennepin's a little different.
Right, and then you can look neighboring counties and say some don't have any security whatsoever, and others have restrictive security. Some are adding it in. Clark County just added security. Jackson County has kind of a hybrid system. Buffalo County doesn't have any. And so every county is a little different, what their tolerance is for risk. I don't know. I think that's the tough question that you guys have to ask yourself of how much risk are you willing to take, and a sense of asking people to lose the convenience of being able to come in and out without weapons screening. And I just say one more thing. When I was the corporation counsel, there was a handful of times where I had people come in to meet with me who were mentally ill, who we would be working on with cases in court with them, and they, I don't know, were they taking their medications, they did not appear stable, and they demanded and wanted to come in and meet with me to talk about their case, and we didn't have weapons screening at that time, and I remember feeling kind of cautious about this. Okay, is this person, how well are they? And so I think, while we talk about the courts, we talk about employees, I think there's another area of people who are coming to the courthouse for services. Are they well, and should they be screened? And so I would say, from my experience as the corporation counsel, I felt safer. I don't know, maybe that they at least went through weapons screening to come in. Even if they're upset, at least I know they don't have a gun or a knife. I don't know. So you have a tough decision to make on this. I certainly agree with after-hours policy needs to be developed to allow certain levels of access to the building. I think that generally the after-hours are less concerning for security, because that's when you talk about people wanting to use the after-hours as a security threat, you're talking about planning. They're going to plan to bring something and plan to plant something in so that when I'm in there at a later time, I can access it. And that's where I think you start to get a little further away from that immediate anger moment. And it's more of like a plan thing. And I hate to say it, but if somebody really has a plan and they want to take you out, there's no security in the building that's gonna prevent that. And that's why, I guess the way I look at it is, let's have security so that we can, at least that limits those moments or times when people are potentially angry or upset and going to do something that they wouldn't probably do if they weren't angry and upset. And so that can look different for every department and people and employees in the court. So I don't think I answered or helped you guys any, just kind of laid the pros and cons out there, make a list of pros and cons, and it's going to be a tough decision either way.
And I think with that in mind, that the full board is going to have a discussion about this. I don't think the property committee, I don't know if we can come to a consensus on how we want this. As this conversation progressed, my opinion's changed a couple of times on how to approach this. I don't think total security and secure security is doable. So it's a matter of degrees, and I happen to agree with you, Judge, that the risk is diminished greatly with after-hours meetings for the reasons you stated. And then, the minute you attach yourself to an opinion, something happens to blow that out of the water, and
And to interrupt, sorry to interrupt you, but when I was corp counsel, there was after our meetings when sort of the sand mining stuff was going on, and there was a lot of contentiousness there and a lot of strong emotions. And so after our meetings sometimes are maybe not real exciting and not much of a security risk, but sometimes they are.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be, or have the potential to be when emotions are high. And
well, and we experienced that, Second Amendment. There was a demonstration about masking and vaccines. Some of that stuff we can plan for. Some of it we can't. But that's a lot like life.
Yeah, I think you made a good point when you said, we can get the security, the best security that we can get, and that's all we can do. But if you got a guy that's planning on something, the best security system is not going to stop them. They're going to come in.
Inadequate, yeah.
So just to avoid and avert any of those random, just off the cuff, or a guy goes off his meds and all of a sudden just flips out, or like you say, his wife serves some papers in the morning, so he comes in. Yeah, those are the things we have to try to avoid and stop. And as far as nighttime meetings, I don't know,
Does the new,
we used to have them here all the time. For the union used to meet, you guys, a lot of people use the facility.
do we have the ability, Jeremy, maybe in the new building, is it possible to secure the courtrooms and that side of the building
Yeah.
without
As well as-
having that same level of security over here?
Courtrooms and sheriff's department would be separate, non.
So,
There's another door to the old building too that they
Yeah,
can't enter.
right.
so just so we're clear, if I wanted to go to land records and file something, I could go in without going through security into this part of the building where that exists, without going through security, and somebody at the same time was coming to go to the
You're
court.
talking after hours, or?
No, I'm talking during normal business hours.
As it sits right now, during normal business hours, unless you change something, there's only the one entrance. They're gonna go through security. All the other doors are gonna be locked.
Right,
That's what
but can I go to this building without going through security and go to that new building, but have to go through security?
Not the way that it's set up now, unless you choose to have other doors open. Unless you choose to have these particular doors unlocked. Like if the current entrance, where it is now, if you choose to have that open to the public, non-secured, that door could be unlocked as it is right now at from 8 to 4:30,
Right,
with
right.
no security there.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to, what are our options? What can we or can't we do?
There are other offices in this area too, like Corporation Counsel and Human Services, that has expressed in the past that they do want security. So then they're mixed in with the other parts of the old
I know
building, too.
everybody might want security.
Right.
I mean, but
Right.
But
to the
like-
point that was made, at what point do we say, this is prudent, and this is just, okay, we can't just go off of everybody's desire? I mean, there's places that people, I mean, you can't, Quick Trip doesn't have security, right? I mean, gotta go through security to get into Quick Trip. I mean, come on, there's a point where it gets to the the level of, number one, you can't financially support it, number two, it is too restrictive, right? For good reason. So I'm just trying to throw these things out there so that we can decide, what do we want to do? If that's not possible to split it out, then it's not possible, but
It would create some changes though, because again, you could come through what would be security now and get to, in your mind for the both buildings connected. Go through security, get to wherever you want in both buildings. But if we left this door open, you could still go from.
still get into the new
You'd still
building.
get into courts without going through security.
You'd have to have another check.
You'd have to keep these two buildings separated at that point.
Well, it's like ADRC, we're not providing them security, right?
Correct.
Of course, when they come over here, they maybe will be, but my point is, there's no way we would ever put security over there to protect our ADRC employees, right?
Not in the building that they're at now, there's no way. There's something to do with.
And I
My
think they
point is-
specifically have
my
asked
point is we
not to.
can't-
Yeah, there's
we're
a
not
certain
doing
statute or
security
something
over
for them anyway, but.
Yeah.
But even in the new building, coming in security and going to ADRC, there's no lock between there. You gotta get past that.
You gotta get past security and to get where you need to go.
Yeah. Because there'll still be double doors into the old building on all floors, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, the only places they could go after hours would be coming in the front door, ADRC and veterans and county clerk and treasurer. Those are the only ones that you could get any farther, because everything else would be locked. Because everything in the court system, both floors would be locked. And then, just across from the elevator, the doors that go into.
Yeah,
the
the
old
meeting
building.
rooms that would be accessible after hours, as it sits in theory on paper now, would be like the Decora, I think, room might be open or accessible, and then what would be the child support area that would become office spaces, whether it was 3 offices or you knock down walls and make 2 or 3 offices, however, that should be
And that-
accessible after hours.
Yeah, and
but-
that, now, I just talked with Kurt on that. They had it, there was just gonna be little offices like what's in child support right now. They're only like 6 by 10, whatever, you can get 2 or 3 people in there. He's gonna make it just 2 larger.
So there'd at least be 3
So
meeting
we'd have
rooms that would
3
be
meeting rooms
accessible.
that would be accessible after hours.
But other than that, after
That's
hours,
it.
the existing Trempealeau room, Wisconsin room, Packer room would not be, they'd be behind secured doors, as it sits right now.
I mean, one thing I think we should consider is for, like, the UW Extension programs, if they need to use the facilities after hours, as long as the person that's hosting that group has got the right access, then they should be able to badge in and go to where they need to be. They're responsible for the people that are here during that time. I would think that would be a reasonable accommodation for that. But during normal business hours, yeah, just have everybody go through security. I mean, that seems to be a logical solution. You're never gonna prevent somebody from bringing something in that after hours, like you said, so we're doing everything we can.
You're gonna have more security costs then, because you have to start them earlier and run them later, because some people start at 6, some people come in at 7.
Well,
I see
I'm
people
talking about
walking in here
normal,
at 7.
the public, when the public can access the building is
But you wanna
between
have the
8 and
employees go through it.
4:30, is it?
But if you're gonna have employees go through it, employees come here at 7 o'clock. And then some work till.
Well, but employees can get into they would be able to be, access what we give
Just a
them.
badge?
What we give them the ability to access.
Okay.
So if they're gonna come in at 7:30 to start work and get their coffee going, they should be able to badge in and get in.
And not go through security.
Right, but a normal person coming in to do work, you're not getting in till 8 o'clock.
Okay, I see what you're saying there,
What we
yeah.
have now.
Correct.
Right. So as long as, I mean, we may need to shore up our policy on how you request access to which doors within the facility on the onboarding process or through, promotion time or whatever. Okay, now I'm a supervisor, so I get access to this door now and I didn't before. I don't know. But, Jeremy, I think you control that now.
I control the access now, and again, I have not seen the program for the new building and how it ties in. That's what I mentioned earlier with the door system,
Yeah.
but I know there is a lot of doors in the new building that have card readers on them, and whether they're gonna be in groups, like Human Services.
Yeah, it's all.
They have a group of 5 doors that
Easier
if you
to
work in
figure
Human
out.
Services, you can get into those, but if it's Ashley's badge won't open the human services area. Hers is only gonna open the front door, give them access to what
Right.
they need. The only
Exactly.
people that have access to everything with their badge is my department, IT, and the 2 deputies at the front door.
And maybe at certain times of the day too, right? 'Cause
Sure.
well, your department, I'm just saying, for example, you could give them access to every door in the building during this time period.
Correct.
We could do that as well.
Yeah, and not, but you, when you're talking about after-hours meetings too for, let's say the FFA wanted to come in here and have a meeting, that's, and how do I give them access if you want it only on cards? Because right now, in the past, what we would do, the Boy Scouts had a meeting in the Trempealeau room. Well, the back door would have been unlocked from 4 to 4:15 for that group leader to open the door to go down into the Trempealeau room on Saturday afternoon. But now if they need to come in there, do I need to give them a badge that only works one day? So they would need to come in on Friday to get a badge so that they could come on Saturday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
I don't, some of those details, I don't know how you would
I see that with the
work through.
schools though.
Right
They give them
now,
a fob.
the new building
Yeah.
is gonna have a speaker system at that front entrance that dispatch is always there. And so they would just push the button and they would say, I'm here for my Saturday 9 o'clock meeting. And dispatch would open the door for them and they can only go into that meeting because all the other doors in the courthouse are securing the rest of the courthouse off. So then they're just in this main area and those 3 conference rooms.
fair enough. Then yeah, as long as dispatch has a list and someone's supposed to be there,
Yep,
then that'd be just fine.
it's been
I mean, it certainly
been done like that for
policy.
Sam does that.
That used to be the old way too before they took that back door out. That's how you'd come in. If you didn't have a badge and you had to come into the courthouse,
Buzz the
because you
jail.
forgot your cell phone in your desk and you come in on a Saturday, you just buzz the jail and say, hey, I need to get to my office, and they buzz you in. Whether they should be doing that or not, I don't know. I'm just saying that's what was done.
They buzz you not only into that door, but then, like if it was me, into the next.
Right.
Then they had full access to the courthouse.
But that seems to be a more reasonable risk-benefit reward, I guess, I'm gonna say it that way. You know, it's certainly a little bit harder to administer. There's an administration factor there, but the burden of having to go through all that as a public person coming in, I think is reasonable.
I'd love to be part of the conversation more, but I have court I need to get to.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Judge.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I think that would be just fine, though. If there's 3 meeting rooms that they'd have access to coming through the new front door, there's a buzzer there that gets the dispatch. As long as dispatch has the list of the room reservations and knows that the FFA is supposed to be there on Saturday at 9, they can buzz them in into the room that they want. That takes me out of the equation, so there is no, administration. It's only Sam, reserving the room
Where
and
the
getting at the
3-year-olds?
dispatch.
They should be able to see it on their.
It would be,
calendars.
from what I understand, it would be the decor room, and then the 2 that will be the child support meeting rooms. That would be accessible in the new building after hours.
Are those new rooms, or they're
No.
existing?
They're existing building, but they'll be demolished and made into new.
Yeah, it's where the connection point will be on the
Okay.
2nd floor. And it's all of the offices that house the child support staff now. Those rooms have been up in the air before, whether they're going to be meeting rooms, or whether they're going to be health department exam rooms, or whether they were going to be an IT closet for Tim. And the last that they are is 2 or 3 conference rooms.
But if somebody wanted to have access to the meeting rooms and, the other side of the other wing over there in the basement?
The pack
you wouldn't be
room,
able-
Trempealeau room.
That would be outside of the realm of what they could get to without having to give it, because the dispatch can't control those buzzers. So that would require a badge. That would require an employee or that
So
guest
that-
getting a badge to
I think
access
that's
them.
in part then the answer is you have rooms that are available to the general public after hours. It's this one or this one, that's it.
And then rooms
if
for
it's
the
an
UW
employee,
extension.
after hours by policy, as an employee has to be sponsored and be responsible for letting them in and out of the building, and these are the rooms that are available, not, you can't give them access to everything then. either.
Correct.
Because right now, I know the security aspect, the point of contention is if we have an after-hours meeting for this existing building, is when they come in the front door, they are very close to dispatch. If there's no security there at that point, and so that was kind of an issue brought up, but that won't be an issue in the new building, because dispatch will be behind 2 or 3 locked doors at that point, not accessible to the public, so.
Is there anything else we need to discuss related to the actual meeting room policy and the charges and the fees? Did we get that finalized?
Well, you did the $50 deal. I think that's the only thing that I know was changed
Is
in it.
Rick on? No, Rick isn't on, because he wasn't on last time either, and we met, and he has the one that we finalized, but it only pertains to this, not for the actual new building once it's like all one big campus, because then it would change, because nothing is in there to any of that verbiage, yeah.
Is that sheriff's training room? Is that on first floor or second floor?
Yes,
First floor.
and he said that would actually be
'Cause he
open
only
to the
has-
public to use too. It's
So
just
that
have
had
to
that
the
would
way
be-
you have secured from the rest of the court system.
That one is behind a secured door too, though.
On the other doors.
Because,
on
yeah,
the-
when you walk into the new building, you're faced with security, and then there's 2 or 3 doors on the left. One would go into the sheriff's department
Yeah.
hallway, and then the other 2 go into what is that emergency training room or whatever. It's kind of the emergency center or training room or whatever it is. It's accessible, but it's behind a locked door. So,
There, but how about, are there other doors in that room that could go into the
He
courts?
said he
of the
designed
sheriff?
it where people in the public can use it.
Yeah,
So
they can get
there's
into
gotta
that
be-
room, but they can't
use
exit
those
that
other
room.
doors to go into
Right.
farther.
They should not
into
be
the
able
court.
to exit that room
Oh,
into the
there,
sheriff's
there we
department.
got, then we got another good room. That's gonna be a pretty good sized one,
Is that training/EOC?
Yes.
yeah. And he told us that it was probably used 4 times a year,
That's a big room, yeah.
and that's a big
That's a big
meeting
room.
room.
Yeah. Well, hopefully,
So,
the county doesn't have to
plenty of
activate the
meeting rooms.
EOC, but training issues, that'll have hookups and everything for computers to be moved in and, okay. Yeah, it's nice that we can call it a multi-purpose room, use it for meetings.
So do we have to formalize anything in the policy?
I don't think yet.
Well, I think we can suggest to the county's corp council that the policy gets adjusted to include the new facility.
Once it's done, and once we get our handle around.
Right.
Well, we'll have to be there to really understand what we want the policy to look like, I think. You know, using it will dictate how it gets used.
Agreed. We can always lighten up, but it's harder to crack down.
Yeah.
I think it'd be nice too if we could get a total layout of the buildings, to see where the doors are, how they come in, how the rooms are situated, so you can,
Have you seen?
it'd
what
be a little
the
bit easier to
tax
visualize,
on it?
you know, how they can get there from the outside,
Yeah.
Yeah,
which should
we
be
have those.
possible, you know, how,
But not,
I'd
not.
I'd like to have it just so I
We
can
made sure that
sit there
there's
and figure
doors
out,
there, so it could be-
okay, this is the meeting room, because I don't know what the meeting
Specifically
rooms
for
are in the
this
new,
Talking about
I don't have that memorized, you know.
Yeah.
whole building.
Yeah. There's
I haven't
some
seen
out
any
there.
of those.
And then,
I see the ones
I
with the
suppose,
whole
I agree with you,
building.
Dan, I think we should take it to the whole,
Yeah, there.
the whole county board's gotta make the decision. And we haven't even decided if
Well, it
you're
needs
gonna
to-
have everybody checked when they come in, employees and,
But it needs to go as, we need to give a recommendation to the full board as what we'd like to see happen, and then there'd be
Right.
discussion on terms of throwing it back at us or something.
it would help us, I think, if we had some of that other stuff to look at too.
And I would like this committee to be at full strength before
Yeah.
we come up with a
Yeah, where's Dick? I know
dentist,
Richard was- oh, I know Richard said he
emergency
was-
dentist.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller called me this morning, said,
That's good
got a
discussion.
bad tooth. Well, I'm gonna
Do you
call
want
that.
left on for next time?
Yes, please.
I got to joke a little bit because about 3 months ago, you told me don't put it back on until 18 months. So then 2 months ago, I put on the thing and said not until 17 months. And then you started talking about it, so I took it, then it was going to be this month, it was said 16 months. But I just think you're going to be talking about it forever.
For a
I
long
mean, for
time.
a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
Not forever, I hope, but.
I think the agenda can basically look except for number 9
We'll take that off, yeah.
on the UW Extension, it basically will look the same. What's the?
June 12th.
12.
June 12th, 8:30 a.m., same place.
The only thing I would say is the judge does plan on being here at every property committee between 8:30 and 9, so if there's anything you want his opinion on.
Have it
you can
closer
move
to the
that
front.
top more,
Yep.
like the security stuff, if there's ever a
Under
question.
yours. Yeah, that's fine.
Will do.
Just add this.
So what, June what?
12.
8:30.
Yep. With that, I will adjourn the meeting at 10:06 a.m. Thank you, one and all.
Just a thought being tried. Let
Jeremy?
extension have their own.
Jeremy?